Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope all of you are well. Welcome to our webinar. I hope you've not had any challenges joining or anything. Again, welcome. Thank you so much for making time. Today we are launching the GAGE-AGIP Participatory Research Toolkit. It's been in the making for quite some time and we're very much excited to put it out there. I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded and the event materials will be amplified on both AGIP and GAGE digital platforms, right? So today we're not only launching, but also celebrating girl-led research, intergenerational collaboration, and the power of evidence created with young people and not just about them. So I'll just take you guys through safeguarding. So safeguarding is in the heart of everything we do at AGIP. So just a few reminders for you guys to note as we launch this toolkit. One, please be respectful. We'll have a Q&A function that we'll use for questions. So as you participate with that, just be respectful and mindful of everyone. Please avoid sharing identifiable information about children or young people, because we mostly work with adolescent girls. And if at any point anyone feels uncomfortable, please reach out to Olivia using the private chat mention. She'll be able to cater to you on that. And also, I just have to mention that the webinars are also available in French and Arabic, so please feel free to choose your desired language. So our values at AGIP is of respect, inclusion, shared learning, and accountability to guide choices. We want this space where young researchers feel heard and where all of us lean into curiosity and not assumption. Again, thank you so much for making time and welcome. Next slide, please. Thank you so much, Priya. So about AGIP, we are a global intergenerational feminist coalition, and we're also a membership organization, and we work with and for adolescent girls across advocacy, research, and also at community level. Our vision is, of course, a world where girls have the voice, choice, and agency to determine their own futures, supported by a holistic investment that responds to the fully complexities of the girls' lives and needs. And our mission is to drive political commitment, accountability, and evidence-informed investment. Next slide, please. So we have been in existence since 2020, and we have grown from 8 founding members to a coalition of 18 organizations from around the world. Our members are all focused on improving outcomes for adolescent girls across multiple sectors, and they prioritize girl engagement and safeguarding in their own operations, and are more committed to learning and the idea that together as a coalition, we can be more than the sum of our parts. And now, so these are some of our members. We have Action Aid, Akili Dada, Amplify, and also GAGE, who we are launching the toolkit together today. Next slide, please. So to begin our journey, I'd like to invite Sana. Sana is currently serving as a junior qualitative researcher at GAGE, and she will shed light on why participatory research matters now more than ever. Welcome, Sana.
Thank you, Asha. And hello, everyone, and welcome to the GAGE-AGIP webinar to launch the Participatory Research Toolkit. My name is Sana Othman. I first joined GAGE as a young participatory researcher in 2019. And since 2024, I've been working as a junior qualitative researcher with the program. It's truly an honor to be here today representing that journey that so many of us have shared, from being research participants to becoming active co-researchers and co-creators of the very tools that have enabled us to make our voices heard and our experiences visible. So why participatory research and why now? As the world moves through the final stretch of sustainable development goals, one question feels more urgent than ever. What kind of evidence do we need to drive real change for adolescent girls and young people. Across regions, we have seen how traditional research often speaks about young people but rarely with them. Participatory research changed that. It starts from the principle of nothing about us without us. It invites young people not as subjects but as partners, shaping questions, gathering data, interpreting results, and using evidence to influence change in their own communities. The launch of this toolkit is about reimagining what inclusive, feminist, and youth driven evidence looks like, and doing so at the time when pushback against gender rights and youth voices is growing. Building on global momentum, although policy moments like Beijing plus the 30, the generation equality process, and this year's UN General Assembly have passed, their legacies continue to guide us. Each has reminded us that advancing gender equality and young people's participation is not a one commitment, it's an ongoing responsibility. So this webinar is part of that continuing movement. It's a space to translate those commitments into practice. How do we make research truly participatory, intersectional, and transformative? How do we ensure that young people lived experiences become the evidence that informs program and policies? So about the toolkit, the GAGE Participatory Research Toolkit was born from years of participatory work from Lebanon to Jordan, Gaza, and Ethiopia, with adolescents and young people who have been documenting their own realities, challenges, and aspirations. It offers a six-stage roadmap for engaging youth meaningfully in every step of research, from defining the issues that matters to them to collecting and analyzing data and sharing findings in creative and accessible ways. It includes hands-on tools like photo voice, body mapping, and peer-to-peer interviews, along with ethical and safeguarding guidance for researchers and organizations that want to do this work responsibly. So what makes this toolkit powerful is that it doesn't just show how to do participatory research, it shows why it matters. It's built on stories of transformation, how young people once hesitant to speak have found the confidence to question norms, influence local policies, and lead change within their communities. And a collective efforts. Today's event reflects that the spirit of collaboration, bringing together young researchers, feminists, scholars, civil society partners, and policy allies to discuss what it means to do research differently. We will walk through the toolkit, hear reflections from both young and adult partners, and engage through an interactive Mentimeter segment and Q&A to capture your insights on what meaningful participation looks like in your own context. On behalf of the GAGE and AGIP teams, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to this journey, the young people, the researchers, civil society partners, government champions, and donors who continue to make participatory research real and transformative. As we begin today's discussion, I invite you to think about one question. How can we move from participation as consultation to participation as a shared leadership? Because the future of this toolkit envisions on where young people are not just shaping research, but shaping the world it informs. Thank you, and I look forward for our rich conversations ahead.
Thank you so much, Sana, and thank you so much for that brief. That is a reminder of why it's not only important to involve young people and adolescent girls, because again, if it's their future, then they really do deserve a seat at the table. Again, thank you. I'm going to invite Pooja to share with us the Mentimeter question. So before we dive into the toolkit, we wanted to check where we're all starting from and what we think of what participatory research is. So we have a few questions. You could join the board, it will, and among the questions, one of the questions we have is, what comes to mind when you hear the participatory research? What comes to mind when you hear the term participatory research? I hope everyone has managed to join. I love the responses that are coming in. So someone says youth as experts, youth leadership, include the voice of participants, inclusive. Someone from chat says inclusive and youth-led. Mashallah, I love the responses. Which are very rich because we all have something in mind, right? So opportunities for research and participants to learn new skills, leadership, but also technical research insights. Very true. Youth as experts. Someone from chat please consider it of stakeholders' voice. So okay. So let's go to the next question. Who usually has most influence over what research about girls focuses on? Okay, so the NGOs, that's a good one. The government, that's a good one. Young girls and women girls. The NGOs are leading at the moment. They're head to head with the governments. So it's clearly not young girls, adolescent girls, and it's clearly not young people, right? So the NGOs, the government. So from this finding that some entity somewhere has influence over what research is about when it comes to young girls, and it is not the young girls, right? So and this is why we are here today. So participatory research shifts power, and it's why it's important. And what you're already sharing highlights the assumptions that we all bring into this space. So to demystify the myths, I will invite our colleagues from GAGE, Sally and Sarah, to take us through the toolkit. So I'll pass the mic to Sally and Sarah.
Thank you, Asha, and hello, everyone. This is Sally Youssef, a qualitative researcher for GAGE in Lebanon. This presentation that me and Sarah are going to deliver today will introduce the participatory research with young people toolkit developed in collaboration between GAGE and AGIP. The toolkit builds on years of participatory work with adolescents across different crisis contexts, especially in Lebanon, Jordan, Gaza, and Ethiopia, as my colleague Sana has mentioned. It's not simply a new method, but a mindset and approach about conducting research with and by young people rather than on them. So if we can start sharing the slides of the presentation, please. Okay, next slide, please. Thank you. Okay, so first about our program. No, the previous one. Sorry. Okay, great. So I'll start by giving you a brief about our program. So Gender and Adolescence Global Evidence GAGE is a 9-year mixed methods longitudinal research program that uses the quantitative, qualitative, and participatory methods, exploring the gendered experiences of young people aged 10-19 in 7 low and middle income countries around the global south. GAGE aims to generate new evidence on what works to transform the lives of adolescent girls and boys, to enable them to move out of poverty and exclusion and to fast track social change. Next slide, please. Can you still hear me? Okay, thanks. So moving to a quick overview of the presentation, we'll start by outlining the objectives of the toolkit and its core principles, then walk through the 6 stages of participatory research, from defining research issues to designing tools to collecting, analyzing, and sharing data, and finally monitoring and evaluating the process. So each stage highlights how young people can be meaningfully engaged throughout the entire research journey. Next slide, please. Next slide. Okay, so research plays a vital role in shaping policies and programs that improves people's lives in general. It helps us understand. Can we go back to the objectives slide? It helps us understand the world around us and identify evidence-based solutions to complex challenges. And over the past years, participatory research has gained momentum, moving beyond traditional methods to engage young people as active participants and co-leaders in the research process. This toolkit provides a practical overview of what participatory research is and how to apply it effectively, with examples of the best and promising practices from the field. It's designed for both experienced researchers and young people themselves to help make research more inclusive and empowering. Ultimately, the toolkit answers 2 key questions. How do we deliver effective and empowering participatory research with and for young people? And what does good practice look like in action? Next slide, please. So the toolkit is built around 6 core principles that guide every stage of participatory research process. These are promoting equity and inclusion, encouraging power sharing, recognizing all participants as experts, ensuring fair compensation and accessibility, promoting reflexivity and self-awareness, and building critical thinking and advocacy. Together, they create spaces where young people are not only heard, but trusted as thinkers, decision makers, and co-creators of knowledge. When these principles are upheld, participation then becomes truly transformative. Next slide, please. So the research is only truly participatory when young people are involved at every stage, from defining priorities to sharing results and evaluating impact. The toolkit lays out 6 key stages for meaningful engagement. Stage 1, defining the research issues and questions. Stage 2, designing the research tools together with young people. Stage 3, collecting the data. Stage 4, analyzing and interpreting it. Stage 5, sharing the findings in youth-friendly ways. And Stage 6, monitoring and evaluating the activities. These stages form the backbone of participatory research and ensure that young people are active partners throughout the process. Next slide, please. So starting with stage 1, defining the research issues and questions. So young people should be engaged as co-researchers from the start. By helping define the key themes and objectives through a decolonial and inclusive lens. Involving them early ensures the research focuses on issues that matter to them and strengthens both the methodology and findings. Adult researchers should be mindful of who is included and avoid selecting only the most educated or articulate youth and make deliberate efforts to reach marginalized groups. By offering financial or other support so their voices shape the agenda and research outcomes. Next slide, please. So key steps to define research issues is to co-identify the everyday risks, challenges, and deprivations young people face, then prioritize them based on what matters most to the youth co-researchers, and work together to answer the key what, who, why, and how questions. So like, what change do we want to see? Why this research matters? Who holds power or can be allies? And how the findings will be used to drive the change in the community. Next slide, please. As an example, GAGE program applies a leave no one behind approach by intentionally including vulnerable and marginalized adolescents, such as youth with disability, young people with disabilities, adolescent mothers, and displaced young people. Before each study in each of our countries, GAGE teams review evidence to identify gaps in support and to ensure diverse representation. The program also addresses gendered power imbalances and works to amplify girls' voices in the global South, ensuring that their experiences shape the research and policy agendas. Next slide, please. So now moving to the second stage, devise a research plan and design the research tools. Next slide. Okay, so because the participatory research demands that young people are included meaningfully in research design process, adult facilitators should help young co-researchers understand the research context and language so they can actively shape the design. So start with a needs assessment to identify what young co-researchers already know and where they need support. And when developing tools, ensure they are adolescent and youth friendly and accessible, using creative and mixed methods like, for example, mapping, focus groups, observations, and small-scale surveys that engage young people participants meaningfully. Next slide, please. So moving to key steps to designing research plan and tools. First, start by deciding what data is needed, whether to analyze existing information or there's a need to collect new data. Next, identify interviewees and define who to talk to, where, and why. Then choose the right research methods based on what insights are needed and any constraints like time, budget, or sensitivities. Finally, discuss strengths and weaknesses of each method to ensure the most appropriate and inclusive approach. Next slide, please. So, participatory research uses creative and accessible tools that help young people share their experiences and ideas in ways that feel natural to them. Methods like photo voice, community or body mapping, social network mapping, and life course timelines, for example, open up discussion and reflection. Increasingly, also, online and arts-based approaches such as virtual mapping, audio journaling, and artistic expressions also enable young people to participate at their own pace and from their own setting, reducing the barriers of time and space. Next slide, please. Okay, so now I leave you with a photo voice video created by a married Syrian refugee girl in Lebanon. She's one of GAGE's participants in our participatory research here, where she reflects on her experience of using creative participatory methods. Following the video, my colleague Sarah from Jordan will continue with the remaining steps. Thank you, and can we play the video, please?
Apologies. There seems to be a technical glitch. I do not see the option. Allow me a second. If it doesn't work, I would request the next speaker to kindly take on while I figure out where the glitch is. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you. Sarah? The floor is yours, I guess.
Hello, everyone. Just to check, are we playing the video first?
Just so that we remain within the time limits, maybe we should move on to Sarah's part if it's not working.
Yes, if we can move on to that, and then my colleagues on the back end can check if we can still play the video afterwards.
Great, thank you, Pooja.
Hello, everyone. To continue on the steps my colleague Sally has started with, we will be moving to stage 3, which is collecting the data. Next slide, please. Once the research design and methodology is co-created with young researchers, the data collection process can begin, where they also take the lead. Peer-to-peer interviewing allows young researchers to design and conduct interviews with other youth, offering deeper insight into issues that affect their peers. Because also of their community ties, young researchers can also gather intergenerational data or review secondary sources like local media and social platforms, enriching the research with perspectives often missed by adult researchers who may not be a part of the community. Next slide, please. Moving to the key steps to data collection, it is important to involve all participants equally by using diverse tools that allows everyone to share their perspectives. It is important that researchers should stay mindful of power imbalances, encouraging young people to voice their own priorities and ideas. At the same time, safeguarding young researchers is essential, especially those who may face risks due to their social identities. Finally, by drawing on young researchers' insider knowledge and community access, peer-to-peer and intergenerational interviews can generate deeper and more meaningful data. Next slide, please. Here we are sharing a good example of participatory data collection comes from a UNICEF project in 2015, which engaged 121 vulnerable young people from Jordan, Lebanon, and Syria. Through peer-led interviews and focus groups, participants used a cascade approach, each reaching out to 11 peers to expand inclusion. This process revealed powerful insights, such as youth's ambitions to start businesses and also strategies to avoid distress and migration, showing also how participatory methods can generate community-driven data. Next slide, please. Now we are moving to stage 4, which is analyzing, the previous one. Analyzing and interpreting the data. This one. In participatory research, young people should be actively involved and take the lead in analyzing and interpreting the data. This stage is crucial to ensure findings truly reflect participants' perspectives. Adult and youth researchers should collaborate from the outset to design an analysis system that's accessible to everyone, while also strengthening young researchers' capacities and encouraging their authorship and contribution to final outputs whenever possible. Next slide. Okay. Moving to the key steps to analyzing data, begin by negotiating with young researchers how they wish to be involved in analyzing the data. Then agree on a clear system to organize materials such as transcripts, photos, or notes. And also together, we must develop a shared search method and categorize data into sub-themes to identify key patterns. And also creating visual models can help make complex data easier to understand. Finally, ensure validation of the analysis so findings are accurate and representative of participants' perspectives. Next slide, please. Here we are sharing another example from rural Uganda that shows how photo voice can support youth-led data analysis. So adolescents used cameras and notebooks to document factors affecting their health, then reviewed and discussed their photos with adult researchers. Together, they selected key images for deeper analysis, identifying themes around hygiene, nutrition, and cleanliness. This collaborative approach allowed young people to articulate their own health priorities and ensured the findings reflected their lived experiences and perspectives. Next slide, please. And now we are moving to stage 5, which is sharing the findings in youth-friendly ways. In participatory research, keeping young people involved in sharing the findings is crucial. It helps them to see the impact of their work and strengthen their sense of ownership over both the process and also the outcomes. However, this stage can be resource intensive, especially in marginalized settings. Supporting the youth participation requires practical measures like chaperoning minors and also ensuring adequate resources for safeguarding and meaningful involvement in designing and delivering dissemination events. Next slide, please. I'm sorry for the noise, in case it's disturbing me. Okay. For sharing the findings, it is a key step to ensure research drives change. So materials should be translated into participants' languages and summarized and visualized and adapted for social media to reach wider audiences. Co-creating event agendas with young people helps strengthen the youth-led advocacy, while safeguarding measures ensure safe participation in all spaces. Finally, young researchers should be supported to take action, for example, following up with authorities or writing reflections to highlight progress or needed change. Next slide, please. Here we are sharing a powerful example of sharing findings which comes from South Africa, where adolescent girls who took part in a participatory study on resilience created their own community-based videos. These videos were then screened to parents and caregivers and community members, turning research into a platform for dialogue and advocacy. This approach not only gave girls a voice to share their experiences directly, but also helped bridge understanding between youth and adults, highlighting how participatory methods can transform research findings into meaningful community action. Next slide, please. We are now moving to the final stage, which is monitoring and evaluating the research activities. Next slide, please. So involving young people in monitoring and evaluation helps strengthen their research skills and enhances the credibility of the findings. Yet maintaining their engagement at this final stage can be challenging due to long project timelines and other life commitments. Adult co-researchers should work to sustain relationships built throughout the project. Monitoring can include sharing updates within the research group or inviting youth to reflect on community changes and actions inspired by their research. Next slide, please. So, effective monitoring and evaluation begin with a clear understanding of the project's goals and target group. Researchers should work with communities to develop an impact pathway, identifying how their work can create a meaningful change. Finally, teams should reflect and brainstorm on outcomes, celebrating successes while identifying actions to strengthen weaker areas and ensure long-term impact. Next slide, please. For my final slide, I am sharing a strong example of monitoring and evaluation that comes from Europe and Central Asia, where researchers used vignettes that were short and evocative stories to explore social norms surrounding children with disability. These stories help participants reflect on their own perceptions and biases, especially around inclusion. Through this process, researchers identified that physical disabilities were more strongly linked to stigma, than developmental ones, leading to a re-evaluation of interventions. This example highlights how participatory reflection during evaluation can generate deeper understanding and guide more effective and inclusive programming. Next slide. I am pleased to hand over to Arkan, a young Palestinian researcher from Jordan, who will speak about her experience with GAGE and the impact participatory research has had on her life. She will be speaking in Arabic in case anyone would like to move the channel for the interpretation.
مرحبا، أنا أركان، عمري 19 سنة. أنا فتاة فلسطينية من مخيم غزة في الأردن. شاركت في البحوث التشاركية مع برنامج جيج منذ 2019، كما أنني أعيش مع إعاقة بصرية أثرت على الكثير من تجاربي أثناء كبري. في البداية تفاجأت كثيرا لأن أحد كان يسأل عن آرائي ويشجعني على مشاركة تجربتي في مجتمعي لا يسمح للنساء والفتيات بالتعبير بحرية، ويعتبر التعبير عن آرائنا نوعا من العيب. وفر لي جيج مساحة آمنة لي وللفتيات الأخريات نستطيع فيها التعبير دون الخوف من الحكم علينا أو التعرض للعنف، بعد أن نتحدث تدريجيا. أصبحت أكثر ثقة في التعبير عن نفسي وفي التحدي الأعراف التي تقيد أصواتنا وأصوات الفتيات والنساء. Next slide, please. في البداية لم أكن أشعر بالثقة للدفاع عن حقوقي، وخاصة حقي في التعليم والمشاركة في المجتمع. كما أن إعاقتي البصرية جعلت من الصعب أن أدافع عن نفسي. كان الكثير من الناس يتوقعون من الفتيات في عمري أن يلتزمن الصمت ويستعد للزواج المبكر، وكأن هذا هو مستقبلنا الوحيد. لكن من خلال جلسات الجيج تعلمت أن التعبير عن نفسي هي الخطوة الأولى للمطالبة بحقوقي. بدأت أدافع عن حقي في التعليم وأشارك في الأنشطة المجتمعية، وأرفض ضغط للزواج المبكر حتى عندما تعرضت للانتقاد بسبب ذلك. ساعدني جيج على فهم حقوقي بوضوح ومنحي مساحة آمنة للبناء الثقة والتجاوز التحديات التي أواجهها، بما في ذلك تلك المتعلقة بإعاقتي البصرية. واليوم لم تعد مشاركتي مرتبطة بتحسين حياتي فقط، بل استخدمت تجربتي لدعم الفتيات والنساء الأخريات في مجتمعي، لأذكرهن بأن أصواتهن مهمة وأن بإمكانهن رسم مستقبلهن تماما كما أرسم مستقبلي. Next slide please. Next slide please. اللي قبله غلبك. تمام. كبرت وأنا أسمع عن جذوري الفلسطينية، لكنني لم أفهم دائما ماذا تعني هذه الهوية بالنسبة لي. بعد حرب غزة في 7 أكتوبر تغير شيء بداخلي. شعرت بحاجة أقوى للتحدث وتصحيح الصورة النمطية الجارحة التي كنت أسمعها. ومن خلال جلسات جيج بدأت أتواصل بعمق أكبر مع هويتي. تعلمت كيف أعبر عن نفسي وأتحدث عن تراثي وأدافع عن قصتي بوضوح. بدأت مشاركتي ووجهة نظري وأرفع الوعي حول ما يمر به الفلسطينيون وأتمسك بهويتي. لم يكن الأمر سهلا دائما، لكن احتضان هويتي منحني القوة والوضوح لأتحدث بهدف وثقة. Next slide please. الكثير من الفتيات اللواتي شاركن في أبحاث جيج جئنا من المجتمعات يصعب فيها التعبير، خاصة حول القضايا الحساسة، ما جعل مشاركتهن تحولية، وهو مجرد وجود مساحة آمنة وشاملة تحترم فيها أصواتهن وتقدر فيها تجاربهن حقا. وهذا بالضبط ما يدعمه هذا الدليل، إن أكثر من مجرد دليل إنه مورد للتمكين، فهو يساعد الباحثين الشباب على فهم العملية ومعرفة حقوقهم والمشاركة بثقة وهدف. يتضمن الدليل أساليب شاملة تعزز الصوت والوكالة والمشاركة الآمنة، مما يمكن للفتيات من ألا يشاركن في البحث فحسب، بل أن يشكلن مساره أيضا. ومن خلال توضيح الأهداف والأساليب وحقوق المشاركات يضمن الدليل الشفافية والمشاركة الفعالة. إنه يفتح المجال لسرد القصص بصدق ويساعد الفتيات وخاصة اللواتي غالبا ما يتم إسكاتهن على امتلاك روايتهن والمساهمة في إحداث تغير حقيقي. وهنا ينتهي عرضنا. شكرا لكم.
Thank you, Arkan. That was amazing. These are links to our program in case you need to learn more about GAGE. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally. Thank you so much, Sarah. And thank you so much and well done, Arkan. That was just Participatory Research 101 in literally under 26 minutes. And thank you for taking us all the way from Africa to Asia and showcasing the importance of involving young people and young adolescent girls. Right? And I've learned two things. One is that participatory research is not a one-off. It's a process. It's a co-creation process, that one that has to be built on trust, but also on accountability. So thank you so much for that. But it's also a reminder on the importance of involving invaluable young girls' voices like Arkan and very many others. So again, thank you so much. And moving to my unbiased, this is like the most favorite part for me. We are going to the intergenerational panel. Next slide, please.
Asha, if you allow me a moment, I think we can test out the photo voice in action if we have time.
Yes, please.
Yeah, just give me a minute.
Okay.
المشاركة ببرنامج جيج دعمني كتير نفسيا ومعنويا. اكتشفت من خلاله موهبة التصوير وصار التصوير متعة بالنسبة لإلي. خلال المؤتمر صار في معرض وانعرضوا فيه صوري وكتير من الناس شافتون، وهيدي الصور صارت انه شجعتني اني اشتغل على موهبتي، والصور اللي انا عم باخدها انه تحكي عن افكاري ومشاعري. ليتحسن وضع البنات اللي مثلي لازم يصار في دورات تشجيع مثل دورات التصوير أو أعمال يدوية أو حرف، بس يا مجانا يا بتكلفة قليلة، ويأمنوا لهم فرص عمل أو يبنوا لهم مشروعهم الخاص ليقدروا يحسوا بقيمة وجودهم ويستمر.
Thank you so much for that, Pooja. Thank you so much for facilitating that. And as mentioned, you're moving to our intergenerational panel. So please showcase the next slide. Our panel focus today is on power, process, and practice. And the question is, how do you meaningfully shift power to young adolescent girls? What does participatory research look like in real context? And also, what have we learned? I am joined by Sana Othman. We've already met Sana. She's the junior qualitative researcher at GAGE Lebanon, and she specializes in adolescent well-being, gender equality, and community engagement. Welcome, Sana. Also with us is Asim Sheikh. Asim is the executive director and head of programs at Lebanese Organization for Studies and Training, LOST, and he comes with over 25 years of experience in community development and humanitarian work. Thank you so much, Asim, and welcome. We also welcome Khadija Abubakar. Khadija is only 20, look at that, and she's a girls' rights advocate and youth researcher with Baba Azimi Foundation in Nigeria, and she supported the girl-led research and action project supported by ActionAid UK. We then met with Dr. Mandusha Madhu. Dr. Mandusha is a senior researcher at Breakthrough. She's a feminist scholar and she holds a PhD in modern history. So thank you so much. Welcome. And I just read the panel filming again. What does participatory research look like in real context? And what have we learned? So I'm going straight into the questions. I will start with you, Sana. You first joined GAGE as a young participant and have since become a researcher yourself. How did that journey shape your understanding of participation and what it means to have a voice? Welcome, Sana.
Thank you again, Asha. So, when I first joined GAGE in 2019, I was a quite hesitant girl from Baalbek. And in my community, everyone tends to share the same views and traditions, and questioning them is often seen as a taboo. At that time, speaking up or expressing a different opinion, especially as a young girl, felt impossible. Throughout GAGE participatory research, I found something I had never experienced before, which is a safe place where I could speak freely, reflect on the challenges in my community, and be heard without judgment. That space became a turning point for me. Over time, I began to question things I had once accepted, like gender expectations, social norms, and even sectarian and political loyalty. I realized that silence only maintains injustice, and that by speaking up, we begin to change not only ourselves, but also the communities around us. Participatory research is transformative because it gives young people ownership of the process. It allows us to move from being subjects of research to becoming researchers ourselves. It recognizes that our experience, insights, and emotions are powerful sources of knowledge. For me, learning to collect stories, conduct interviews, and analyze what we heard helped me understand how deeply research can reflect real life when young people are part of it. It's not just about data, it's about empowerment, empathy, and action. This journey also taught me that having voice is not only about being heard, it's about being trusted to lead. Participatory research gave me the confidence to pursue my education in Beirut, to challenge gendered boundaries, and to stand for what I believe in, even when it wasn't easy. Today, as a young researcher, I see how essential it is to invest in participatory research, not just as a method, but as a long-term commitment to young people's leadership. Experience like mine show how powerful it can be when adolescents are given the space, the trust, and tools to speak for themselves. I hope more organizations and funders will continue to invest in participatory research and create these safe, inclusive spaces so that more young people can move from participation to leadership and from being listened to shaping the decisions that affect their lives.
Asha, you're on mute.
We can't hear you, Asha.
Sorry. Thank you so much for that. Thank you so much, Sana, for that. I have put something in chat that really resonated with me when you say participatory research is transformative and allows us to become researchers ourselves. Thank you so much. And
Thank
my
you,
next
Asha.
question is to Khadija. Welcome, Khadija. In your view as a girl advocate and a girl researcher, what makes participatory research different from traditional research? And why is it important for young people, especially adolescent girls, to be co-researchers? Is Khadija with us?
She is. I can see her. Khadija, are you able to unmute?
Okay, Janice.
Hi, Khadija.
She's just dropped off. We might be
Okay.
having some internet
Oh,
issues, so I
technical.
should maybe go onto our next speaker.
Yes, that works. Thank you so much, Olivia. So, Mandusha, you're next. I would
Hello.
like to know. Hello, Khadija. How are you?
Good day, everyone. My name is Khadija. I am a girl researcher and advocate from Baba Azmi Foundation under Girl-led Action Project supported by Action Aid Nigeria. Participatory research means involving people directly in identifying the challenges they face, as helping them to find solutions and helping them to find solutions. In 2024, I was part of a research project called Girl-Led Action Project, where we use tools like body map, community map, activity chart, intergenerational relationship, friendship cycles to explore power flower, to explore issues like early marriage, lack of education, poor health care, etc. Being involved in this research made me feel seen and heard. It gave me confidence to speak out and advocate for change, especially during our advocacy visit to government officials and stakeholders. For example, when we go for advocacy to Commissioner of Basic Education, because of what they had from us, they supported us with money, which we are going to use it for dignity kits, which are going to share it to girls all over Jigawa. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Khadija. I have shared with you my take home. Being involved in this research made me seen and heard, and that is the power of participatory research. So going straight to Manjusha, and I'd love to know, what would you say to organizations or researchers who want to meaningfully involve adolescent girls and youth in their work?
Thank you, Asha, and thank you everyone who presented before. It was a fantastic presentation and a particularly useful one to see, and potentially useful for us as researchers as well. I think for us, both for me as an individual researcher and as a person from an organization that works so deeply on gender norms, social gender norms, it is critical. Participatory research has always been fundamental to the kind of work that we do, right? And I think for many of us, what is always a challenge is, of course, there are these words that are constantly used, particularly when you write a grant proposal: participatory, feminist, reflexivity, and it's always a challenge to sort of imagine what that would be in practice. And I'm very glad to see this toolkit, because a lot of the stages that you've sort of enumerated is something that we have also incorporated into our research projects of the last 2 to 3 years, and I can get into the details of it. And I think personally for us as an organization, it came from a deeper reflection on questions of power, and this is intrinsic to knowledge, as we all know. Of course, the fundamental axis of power in this case, as those of us who are based in the global south, is this fundamental difference between, previously colonized nations and what is the global north. But other than that, also to be attentive to privilege in our own locations, right? And this could be in diverse way. It could be your ethnicity, it could be your race. In India, it could be your caste, your tribal identity, etc., along with your gender identity. So for us, the politics of knowledge construction, who gets to define knowledge, and who's the fundamental and ultimate custodian of the knowledge. So that these were the questions that sort of prompted us to think about participatory in a much more deeper fashion. And one of the earliest projects that we sort of implemented this in a very stringent or very dedicated fashion was 3 years ago, 2.5, 3 years ago, which was essentially in the eastern part of the country, in a state called Jharkhand, where we have a program with adolescent boys and girls, where we incorporated participating not just in terms of the proposal, but just in terms of the ideation of the entire project. So while I was listening to Sana present and all the stages, that was also something that we were very mindful of. So we had young adolescents be involved in every stage. So right from the research proposal, right, the research design, we had methodology workshops conducted with them. So we had one with experts, etc. But we also had a very dedicated and detailed one-day workshop with young people, which was extremely productive. And where we asked them what they felt were the critical questions in their lives. And this is specifically for an education project, and we asked them what their aspirations around education was and what, in terms of mechanisms of study, they felt would be the most effective for us to reach their life worlds. Yeah, and at the same time, after that they were also incorporated at every step of this process. So by which I mean we had a whole series of learning loop workshops. So after the methodology workshop, we involved them for the tool creation. And then once we did data collection, we went back to them with preliminary findings and took their inputs again. Then we went back to them with the final findings and again took their feedback and inputs. And so while Sana was presenting the aspect of analysis, I suppose this was one way that we had sort of incorporated analysis in the entire process of our study. And I think this was particularly important for us, and I'll quickly end here, because it did help us think of the topic of study in a much more organic, dynamic fashion. We are an organization that works on social norms. So as we all know, this is deeply cultural, contextual. I noticed in one of the presentation slides, hidden information. So the fact that you involved people, and another important part of the study was also, and I think this is an aspect that we can all reflect on, is also the idea of bringing in local enumerators, getting enumerators, data collectors from the areas of our study, right? And that also helps. So for this study and all the studies that we have done after, we've also been mindful of involving enumerators and data collectors from the immediate ecosystem, right, of the study, of the geographies of the study. So cumulatively, all of this helped us deepen the kind of research insights we had, yeah. So that was particularly relevant for us. And one final point before ending, there were also, and I think there were a couple of methodological suggestions that were made in Sana's presentation. But I do recall in one of the methodology workshops that we did, another critical point was the possibility of borrowing from other disciplines. We derive a lot from feminist and social sciences, but there was also, for example, a suggestion that was made around walking methodologies, which is essentially borrowed from critical geography, where you use, you sort of walk around the spaces that you're trying to study, and that gives you a sense. And we would encourage adolescents to do that. And similarly, the idea of using digital tools, so which is why I was very excited to see the photo voice. So I think this is, it's very key because, and it's also not a process that we have sort of perfected, right? There are challenges, and I'm happy to talk about that later. But what it does is definitely make our research a lot more inclusive and a lot more rooted in the truest sense possible. And not be extractive, which is what I think a lot of us are guilty of, as the Mentimeter told us earlier on. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manjusha. Thank you so much. I have just put on the chat what I resonated with, but then you mentioned the possibility of borrowing from other disciplines, which is very important because 9 out of 10 times all these issues are very much interdisciplinary. So thank you so much. And now we go to Asim. So the question is, based on your work as a community-based organization, what does it take to move beyond adolescent girls and youth participation toward genuine power sharing in shaping programs, research, and local decision-making?
Okay, first, thank you for the invite. When we talk about intergenerational collaboration, we need to change our perception about youth, first and foremost. What I mean is we need to revisit our blanket assumptions that youth are only a liability or a burden. We also need to acknowledge the fact that, and this was proven very clearly through the platform of GAGE, youth are contributors, positive assets, and real agents of change. One of the examples of of the significance of youth engagement is the webinar itself, because it is led by almost all youth. And this again shows how youth engagement is a possibility and is also a must. Allow me, in order to explain the whole scenery, to contextualize a little bit, focusing on one sector in one area. Here, I mean economic empowerment / livelihood in Lebanon. You know, Lebanon is facing now a compounded, multifaceted problem, starting from war, economic crisis, the conflict on both sides of the country, economic stalemate, political paralysis, and the like. If we focus in this country about economic empowerment, we know that our public sector is paralyzed. No sense or prospect of employability or employment for the next 10 years. This was said bluntly by the state. Our private sector is also not that booming. We need also, in order to change the country or to change the mindset of people in this country, for innovation, commitment, knowledge, skills, strategic way of thinking, which is lacking. Knowing that our community is 60% youth in population, there's an entry point. If we want to have a change, we need to require real engagement of youth. And these youth hold the capabilities I was referring to: commitment, skills, knowledge, attitude, and most and foremost, innovation. This reality means that young people's engagement cannot rely on government structures. It cannot also rely on short-term projects. It has to be built through a broader ecosystem. So one effective way of intergenerational collaboration is to establish this triangular partnership that links youth to public sector and to the private sector simultaneously. This is known here as PPP, public-private partnership. Here, I'm focusing particularly on economic empowerment, as this has been a major concern voiced consistently by adolescents and youth in Lebanon, given the prolonged economic, political, and social crisis the country has been facing. And GAGE Participatory Research has underscored very clearly how access to livelihood opportunity directly affects the overall well-being of both adolescents and youth, influencing not only their economic security, but also their sense of purpose, their dignity, and their belonging. Such partnerships move beyond consultation or shared accountability only. It engages youth from the design to the advocacy. And this should be also the case. Empowering and engaging youth is not enough. You need to engage other stakeholders like employers and the public sector at large. Because employers should not receive trained youth. They should be meaningfully involved in shaping the process, identifying the real market needs, and seeing how investing in youth actually benefits them, the youth and the community at large. So we need to perceive youth as an investment that on the long run is very profitable. Another thing that is missing in our intervention is continuity and mentorship. What I meant, usually we focus on supporting and stimulating startups because they are the only solution to a paralyzed public sector and to a non-booming private sector. However, and too often, youth-led initiatives and startups receive short-term support. Then they face income and management challenges once the grant ends. Building on a system of long-term coaching and follow-up for youth ensures that young people can navigate these hurdles and remain active partners in local development. Here again, participatory action research can play a role. When youth are engaged through the participatory action research approaches to conduct proper market analysis and focus on group discussions, we move away from the traditional worn out top-down assessments and instead capture authentic and local priorities. And this is not only limited to economic empowerment, by the way. It has also extended to the broader engagement of young people across areas such as voice and agency, education, psychological well-being, and participation in community life. So it has a spillover effect, a ripple effect. Through participatory research, young become active contributors who shape the questions, influence the analysis, and articulate what accountability and inclusion really mean to them. This evidence then becomes a bridge. It speaks both to policymakers and to communities and helps hold institutions accountable for responding to real needs and prioritize the priorities identified by youth themselves. But, however, in our situation in Lebanon, we must recognize that public institutions, as in many parts of other crisis-affected countries, are not yet ready for this kind of partnership. They are paralyzed, as I said. They often lack the skills, the resources, and the openness to engage youth meaningfully. And we don't want it to be like a tokenism or a decoration, having youth present in a webinar just like this one. We need part of the social society organizations to pilot models of real collaboration, like practical and local examples that can later be adopted once reforms and the political will allows it. So we need to create a model for public institutions to replicate and to adopt in the future once we have reforms. We are not only engaging youth today, but also preparing the institutional ground for more responsive and inclusive governance, definitely tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asim. My two tech points from your very experienced response is that empowerment for the youth and adolescent girls is not the same and it's not enough, but we need to also empower other stakeholders because the youth and girls, adolescent girls do not work in just that, right? They work with other stakeholders, so the empowerment should be on both sides. So thank you so much for that. I now, in just 1 minute, to all the speakers, this is the last question. I would appreciate if I can have your videos on as you respond. What's one commitment all of you take forward from today's discussion to strengthen adolescent girls and youth agency in your own work? What's one commitment you take forward from today's discussion to strengthen adolescent girls and youth agency in your own work? I will start with Khadija, then Manjusha, then Asim, and then we finish with Sana.
Hi, teacher.
Oh, what's one? Can you hear me?
Hello. Please,
Hello,
can you
Khadija.
repeat the question?
The question is, what's one commitment you take forward from today's discussion to strengthen adolescent girls and youth agency in your work?
Hello, Ma. I have technical.
I've put the
Please,
okay.
I
I have
technical.
sent you the
Okay.
okay. That is fine. So Khadija, as you read the question, I'd just ask Manjusha to please respond to the question. What's one commitment you take forward from today's discussion to strengthen adolescent girls and youth agency?
I think personally for me, the idea of using arts, because I'm always interested in methods, and the point that I was trying to raise earlier on was around some of the challenges of these methods, the traditional methods that we use. And I think there's been a lot of focus on the ability to speak, to articulate, but what we've also seen as practitioners is sometimes not everything can be articulated, right? And particularly when you go into different spaces, areas of crisis, of conflict, etc., it's very difficult for adolescents to articulate what they feel. And I think there's too much onus on speaking and writing. And we are constantly reflecting on what are the other mechanisms or what are the other tools that we have at our disposal, which can essentially help us to sort of, build collective knowledge production together. And I think some of the ideas that were discussed in terms of using the arts, the photo voices, these sort of audio journaling, I thought that was a very compelling example. So these, the methods, for example, are something that I would be very keen on deepening and taking forward, because experimenting with digital tools is something that we are already doing, trying to get young people to use phones to sort of document their everyday lives and the surroundings they are, of course, within the confines of ethical research guidelines. But yeah, so these sort of innovative tools in terms of actionizing some of the ideas that we often have, and it's always at a very lofty level. So that's very helpful. And just listening to all of you articulate, all the earlier speakers talk about how they've managed to use these tools to sort of navigate, because that's what we're always hoping, that even the research process is transformative in some way or the other. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manisha, for that. I'm going to ask Sana.
Hello.
Oh, hello, Khadija. Are you with us?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
For
You
me,
can please respond.
what I'm thinking is just to involve more of them. For example, all these tools that we have learned, like activity chat, intergenerational relationship, friendship cycles, help us more. And even the girls, when we are teaching them, it helps them more to understand what we are teaching them. And they learn a lot in their houses, and things have changed.
Okay, thank you so much, Khadija, for that. Sana, are you ready?
So one commitment I'll take forward from today's discussion is to keep encouraging young people to share their voices and take every opportunity to participate in spaces where their voices are not only heard, but truly shape decisions that affect their lives. Participatory research has shown me how powerful it is when adolescents are trusted as researchers and leaders, when their experience and perspectives guide the work itself. I have seen how this process gives the young people confidence, leadership, a sense of ownership over change, and the belief that their voices truly matter. I want to keep advocating for more opportunities like this so that more young people can experience what I did, being listened to, taken seriously, and realizing that they can lead the way.
Thank you so much, Sana. We close with Asim.
Okay, definitely PPP, I mean public-private partnerships with youth and adolescents as core is a clear commitment. Promoting the decentralization is also a commitment, because young agency thrives only when decisions are taken closer to the community. When we bring together local authorities, private sector actors, and young people in shared spaces of dialogue and action, as we did with the GAGE, we move from individual projects to collective accountability, and we create systems that truly reflect young people's priorities.
Thank you so much, Asim. And thank you so much to all our panelists. Thank you for the beautiful responses that you have given. I appreciate all of you. I'm now transitioning to the interactive segment, which I'm sure most of you have been waiting for. I will welcome a reflection from Sireen Abdul Rahman. She's a young Palestinian refugee woman from Syria, currently living in Ain al-Hilwa, Palestinian camp in Lebanon. Welcome, Sireen. Okay.
سيرين إذا عم
I will welcome
تسمعينا لا
Isra Haj
تفتح.
Hussein, who's
I'm so sorry. Maybe we can take إسراء. إسراء أنت معنا؟
عالم.
Oh, Sirene is here.
مرحبا، أنا سيرين، باحثة يافعة بالبحث التشاركي ببرنامج جيد. خلال مشاركتي بالبرنامج استخدمنا أدوات مثل مقابلات الأقران والجلسات الفردية والجماعية والتصوير التشاركي، يلي من خلاله كنا نقوم بزيارات للبيوت والمستشفيات والمدارس لنحكي من خلال الصور عن واقع مجتمعنا وقضايانا الملحة اللي لازم نشتغل على إيجاد حلول لإلها، وهالشي خلى التجربة تكون نابعة من الواقع اللي عم نعيشه. تنوع الأدوات أعطت لكل وحدة فينا فرصة تعبر بطريقة بترتاح فيها. أنا ارتحت في التعبير من خلال الصور، بس غيري يمكن يفضل الرسم أو الكتابة أو الحكي. فبرأيي التنوع بالأدوات مهم، لأنه ما في طريقة واحدة بتناسب الكل. لما يكون في خيارات أكثر المشاركة بتصير أريح وبتسمح للكل يعبر من خلال نقاط القوة بالتعبير اللي عندنا هي يلي بتنميها المشاركة. ولما نمشي من قوتنا بنكتسب ثقة أكبر، بنصير نستخدم هالأدوات في الحياة اليومية حتى. ثاني شيء التغيير الحقيقي ما بيصير من فرد واحد، البيئة كلها لازم تتغير معنا. عشان هيك بعتبر إنه كمان كثير مهم نسمح بمشاركة الأهل أو الزوج في بعض الجلسات، وجودهم بيساعد يفهمونا ويدعمونا. فبتمنى يصير في مساحات أكبر تجمع البنات فيهم. بضيف شغلة أساسية، بتمنى يكون موجود بالبحث التشاركي تدريب عمل مباشر ضمن جلسات مخصصة على مهارات مثل حل النزاع والتعبير عن المشاعر بطرق صحية لحماية الحدود الشخصية بالأخص بعمر المراهقة. هذا النوع من التدريب المباشر مش بس المكتسب من خلال المشاركة بطريقة غير مباشرة، ممكن يعطينا قوة أكبر ونغير بحياتنا على الصعيد الشخصي والعام. وشكرا لهالمساحة اللي ساعدتنا نشوف حالنا بطريقة جديدة.
Thank you so much, Sirene. Is Isra with us? Okay, as she is not with us,
مرحبا.
I will come. Oh, okay, she's here. Welcome.
مرحبا، أنا إسراء، باحثة يافعة بالبحث التشاركي لبرنامج جيج. كانت تجربتي بالبحث التشاركي تجربة جميلة ومفيدة جدا. من خلال العمل التشاركي تعلمنا كيف نتبادل الأفكار من خلال الحوار وتوزيع الأدوار داخل المجموعة. النقاشات ساعدتنا كتير نفهم الاختلافات بمجتمعنا، حتى نفهم بشكل أعمق القضايا المجتمعية يلي صرنا نكتسب عنها معلومات أكتر من بعض، وحتى كنا نتحاور ونحدد القضايا الأهم يلي لازم نشتغل عليها وكيف بيكون حلها. خلال سنين مشاركتنا بالبحث التشاركي مرق لبنان ونحن على صعيد شخصي مرقنا بكتير أزمات ومشاكل مثل كورونا، الأزمة الاقتصادية، حرب وتهجير، وكتير أزمات تانية. الجو الآمن، السرية بالمجموعة، الخصوصية، وقدرتنا إنه نحكي عن تجاربنا بحرية وراحة خلت جلسات المجموعة والمقابلات الفردية تصير دعم نفسي كبير لإلنا. مشاركتنا بالبحث ساعدتنا كتير خلال هيدي الأزمات. الأدوات المختلفة اللي استخدمناها بالبرنامج سهلت كتير علينا التعبير عن حالنا وبالأخص التصوير التشاركي. بس أنا كنت بحب إنه يكون في عنا فرص لنزيد عدد المشتركين، لأنه بحس هالتجربة مهمة لكل البنات، أو يكون عنا فرص أكتر نعمل مقابلات الأقران مع أشخاص من عمرنا بالمجتمع ونصير نشكل حركة حوار ودعم لبعض. كمان بحس لازم يكون في دمج أكبر للسوشيال ميديا بالبحث التشاركي، لأنه هيك فينا نوصل أسرع ولعدد أكبر من الأشخاص يلي من جيلنا وكمان صناع قرار. شكرا.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Isra. And also thank you so much, Sirene. So we're moving to the last bit of the webinar. I'm going to welcome the watch party from Akili Dada. Nina and Tim, please take it away. We'd like to hear from the girls the reflection on participatory research.
Hello, thank you so much, Asha. My name is Wamboi from Akili Dada, and we're joined by Precious, Cynthia, Tracy, Daisy, and Faith. These are girls from our Girls Advocacy Network here from Nairobi, Kenya. We were actually not sure how we'd be able to tune in, so we had typed out our reflections. So we have a couple. One, Faith was surprised by how confidently and creatively the girls applied participatory research method to analyze their experiences and generate strong insights. She found that quite inspiring. And then from Sana's presentation, Daisy identified that the following research tools, which she felt would work best for girls in Kenya. She highlighted two. This is small group discussions where girls can speak freely and feel safe to share their life experiences. Second is one-on-one interviews, which would provide far more insight into girls' thoughts and feelings. And just in spirit of agency, why I'm reading their reflections, because we were working behind the scenes, is because we are sharing a device. I wish I could switch on the video and you would get to see. So I'm the one closest to the microphone and the device is projected. Okay, and then from Tracy, she noted there was a guiding prompt from AGIP on what support she feels girls would need to do research confidently. And she shared that the support she feels girls in her community would need to do research confidently, most importantly, would be to have a trusted adult or facilitator who would act as a safety partner and mentor, emphasis on them not being a director. And this would be from the start of the research to the end. She spotlighted Sarah's journey or reflection of her journey with GAGE and the growth that she's had. Lastly, we had Precious, who shared if she was to ever lead a research project, she would choose the issue of girls feeling unheard or not being viewed as valued members of their community. She's just alluding to how they mostly feel left out in community spaces, at school, and their homes, which then makes their ideas invisible, even though they are the true experts of their lived experiences. That's it from Akili Dada, Nairobi, Kenya. Thank you so much, and we're happy to be part of this and looking forward to it. More conversations on the same.
Thank you so much, Nina, and please pass our regards to the Dadas, but really worked with during the watch parties. So we have 7 minutes left, and before I kill this, I've left something on the chat. You can just respond. You're not going to use Mentimeter. Just respond and tell us, how did this session make you feel and what has inspired you, right? In regards to the questions, most of them have been responded to in the chat. But if you have any more questions, please just put them on the chat or on the Q&A function. But thank you so much for your time. I appreciate all of you. I now will welcome Olivia, our program manager at AGIP, to do the closing reflection. Welcome, Obi.
Thank you, Asha, and thank you everybody for joining today and for giving such insightful contributions. I particularly loved, as always, hearing from the young women in the room, and also great to hear from so many voices from the Akili Dada watch party too. But obviously thanks especially to Asha, our lovely AGIP colleague, who actually only joined less than 2 months ago and stepped in immediately to lead on coordinating this event. So thank you, Asha. And also to our wonderful member GAGE, who have done such consistently great work with and for adolescent girls over the past decade, of which the Participatory Research Toolkit is only one part. So in terms of key takeaways, the ideas that came off really strongly for me were that this toolkit is not just another publication, but a commitment to doing research differently, to shifting from extractive models to approaches that center girls' agency and leadership, that amplify youth voices and embed feminist principles so that, in Khadijah's words, girls can be seen and heard. As we've only got 5 years left on the clock for the 2030 agenda, just having evidence on important issues is not enough. It's also about how that evidence was generated and who by. So it's not just about methodologies, as Manjusha put it, it's also about power and politics. And in, I think, the words of Sana, empowerment, empathy, and action. And then also, as Sam spoke about how participatory research means that evidence becomes a bridge to institutional change. And this idea of governments being accountable to adolescent girls and young women through meaningful engagement right from the beginning, right from evidence generation through to policy creation and then monitoring is so crucial and is also a key focus for AGIP. So, what now? Of course, we encourage you to download, read, and share the toolkit itself. We've put the link in the chat quite a few times. I'm sure you haven't missed it. It's available on both the AGIP and GAGE websites, and we'll also be sharing it across all of our social media. And then for those of you who actually conduct research, we hope that this has inspired you to continue or at least start prioritizing adolescent girls as meaningful participants in your work, to really co-identify the issues and work on them together. And then in general, if you have more resources on participatory methods with adolescent girls, please do just get in touch, reach out to GAGE, reach out to the Secretariat, because we'd love to read it and help amplify it for you to really improve that usage of the amazing body of evidence that we already have. And then on our side, the Secretariat will follow up in a couple of weeks with a summary of this event to capture some of the fantastic takeaways, and we'll share that with you. And please do share that also with your networks, and make sure that all of the girls that have joined today get to see it too. And so with that, thank you all, and I will hand back to Asha, our wonderful host.
Thank you so much, Elvi. Thank you so much. And I'd like to thank everyone who joined. I'd like to thank also everyone who stayed. Joining is one thing, registering is one thing, staying through the course is a whole other thing. So thank you so much. Thanks so much to our colleague, GAGE. You guys did the work. And thank you so much again to our speakers. You have really embodied the work. So again, thank you so much. I will give you all back your 2 minutes, and do have a lovely rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you, Asha. Thanks, everyone. Bye. Good
Thanks,
evening.
and thanks to the interpreters as well.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.